Okay, so welcome everybody to our second session of the NACADA Core Value Series. Last month we had care and empowerment, and this month we have the core values of inclusivity and respect. So as I kind of reviewed the last time, the core values are really not necessarily what they are what we do, but they're more essentially who we aspire to be, who we are, as opposed to what we do. So I know one follows the other, right? But just in thinking of it as like the embodiment of these values and how it informs our practice. So without further ado, I want to turn things over to Margaret MacKeverican from the Department of Public Health and Tuonanyene Sims from the Warrior 360 program. And I'll let you guys take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, you introduced it quite well. As Kate said, I'm Margaret, and my co-presenter is...
Hi, everyone. I'm Tuonanyene Sims. Good to see everybody in the room.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. All right, so first we wanted to start with a land acknowledgement. So Wayne State rests on Wawiyantanog, also referred as Detroit, the ancestral and contemporary homeland of the Three Fires Confederacy. These sovereign lands were granted by the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi and Wyandot nations in 1807 through the Treaty of Detroit. Wayne State University affirms Indigenous sovereignty and honors all tribes with a connection to Detroit. With our Native neighbors, Wayne State can advance educational equity and promote a better future for Earth and all people. So next, we wanted to introduce NACADA's definition for each core value. As Kate kind of alluded to, there's not much out there on the core values aside from just kind of the description of each core value. Sorry, one second. Sorry, I lost my screen for a second. Like I said, I don't consider myself an expert, but I'm always happy to share what I've learned along the way. And we're going to start with the core value of inclusivity, which states academic advisors respect, engage, and value a supportive culture for diverse populations. Advisors strive to create and support environments that consider the needs and perspectives of students, institutions, and colleagues through openness, acceptance, and equity. Is it showing still or no?
No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah, my screen, sometimes my monitor does this weird thing. Okay.
It is.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. Okay. All right, next, we wanted you guys to take a minute to jot down in our Mentimeter that we created what inclusivity means to you in the context of your daily advising practice. I can put that stuff in the chat too, so you can pull it up on your screen. And I'm going to go, oops, little preview. Right, to kind of the results. So we just want you to reflect a little bit on what inclusivity means to you in the context of your daily advising practice. So we'll give you like a minute or two and we'll reconvene. Great. Getting some great thoughts here. Awesome. All right. Cool, cool. All right, a lot of supporting comments, a lot of accepting and listening. Great, great. Oh, sorry. Looks like there's an ad in here. Try to get the ones with the ad free, but Hey, not everyone can afford that. All right, so awesome. So great. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. I think you all are all on the right path here. And you're in the right place to learn a little bit more. So let me switch back and let's talk about, oops. Of course, we're beholden to technology. All right, and let's move on to respect. So we've introduced inclusivity, but how does NACADA break down respect? And they state that academic advisors honor the inherent value of all students. Advisors build positive relationships by understanding and appreciating students' views and cultures, maintaining a student-centered approach and mindset, and treating students with sensitivity and fairness. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing we did with inclusivity. So what does respect mean to you? It's the same link, so I'll just copy paste that again, and I'll just advance the slide so you can see that part. All right. Are you able to get to the next slide, or is it? So it's not, so you just have to click to the next one that includes respect. Okay, good. All right. Someone figured it out. It's doable. I wasn't sure if I should just create a new one or just another slide. So I'm glad y'all are getting after it. All right, treat the golden rule, right? Treating people how you want to be treated. All right, great. I'll spend another minute reflecting on this and then moving on. Don't judge differences. Great. Transparency, yes. Considering other points of view and stories. Okay, great. All right. You guys need more time? Are you good? You thought about it? Only a couple. All right. Hear nothing. So just want to give people a chance to kind of warm up a little bit, put some thoughts down. And I'll wait a couple more seconds. Yep, you're all human beings, exactly. Cool. It's been a few seconds since the last one came in, so I'll just move on for right now. Oh, there's another one. Okay. Acknowledge experiences of others, addressing their needs. Great. Yeah. You guys are pros already. What are we doing here? No, I'm just kidding. All right. So we talked a little bit about the definition of each core value. So now we're going to talk about our theoretical and conceptual frameworks behind this presentation. Thanks again for putting your thoughts together and warming you up a little bit. Essentially, we'll be utilizing cultural humility, sense of belonging, appreciative advising, along with strengths-based and student-centered advising, and universal design for learning. And honorable mentions to the intersectional model for multiple dimensions of identity, mouthful, but a great study, and decolonizing academic advising. So when we think of cultural humility, it just emphasizes that inclusivity and respect are not static achievements, but ongoing practices that require continual self-reflection and learning. And advisors can practice cultural humility by continually reflecting on their own biases, remaining open to learning from students' experiences, and recognizing that inclusivity and respect are ongoing efforts and not one-time achievements. And we can practice cultural humility by acknowledging that you don't have all the answers and by seeking to also learn from our students' experiences as well. Sorry, sports marketing is calling me. Decline. Okay. Sense of belonging. So students who feel like they belong are more likely to succeed, right? We've heard that before. And academic advising plays a crucial role in fostering the sense of belonging by creating an inclusive environment where students feel connected to their academic community. And advisors contribute by building strong, supportive relationships and acknowledging each student's value within the institution. So also a big component here is that appreciative advising. So using a strengths-based model to focus on students' potential and engage them in creating or co-creating their educational path. This strengths-based, student-focused approach really helps advisors build positive relationships by identifying students' talents, capabilities, and aspirations. And it emphasizes collaboration and co-creation of students' academic paths with a focus on growth and potential. And then strengths-based advising just emphasizes identifying and leveraging students' unique strengths rather than focusing on any weaknesses or perceived weaknesses. And by helping students recognize and develop their innate talents, advisors can empower them to take ownership of their educational journey and create strategies for success based on their abilities and interests. And then student-centered advising. So we want to begin each session by acknowledging the student as a whole person, right? Ask those open-ended questions about their goals, challenges, and how you can best support them. And then UDL comes in because we want to advocate for advising practices that are flexible and can accommodate all students, and particularly those with disabilities or diverse learning needs. And UDL promotes that flexible advising practices that can accommodate the diverse learning styles, needs, and abilities of all students, and encourages designing advising sessions that are inclusive and accessible to everyone. All right, and now we're going to move on to NACADA core competencies. So those are the tools that support and really operationalize our core values. And Tuonanyene and I thought that these specific core values really, core competencies, the core really confuses me. The core competencies support the core values of inclusivity and respect. So those like under the conceptual umbrella, like academic advising approaches and strategies, and how equitable inclusive environments are created and maintained. Under the informational, the characteristics, needs, and experiences of major and emerging student populations. And under relational, create rapport and build academic advising relationships, communicate in an inclusive and respectful manner, and engage in an ongoing assessment and development of advising practice. All right, on to our next part, Tuonanyene.
Thank you, Margaret. So now we're going to talk about barriers. And so, it's easy to say that we include inclusivity and respect into our advising practices. That's pretty simple. But when you examine yourself, does it always come as second nature? Possibly some, but there's a good chance that there might be some struggle in some areas. So what prevents us from being inclusive and showing respect in our advising practices? There are various barriers. Okay, so things like implicit bias, stereotyping, lack of cultural competence, limited awareness, communication barriers, high advisor to student ratios, insufficient training, negative campus climate. Those are all things that can prevent us from exercising inclusivity and respect in our practices. So today we're going to focus on barriers that are within our individual control. There are also institutional barriers, but we're going to focus on individual barriers. And so those would be implicit bias, stereotyping, lack of cultural competence, and limited awareness of resources. On the next several slides, what we'll do is I'll define each of the 4 barriers. I'll discuss the impact that it has on the advisor-student relationship. I'll talk about the consequences there are for students, and then we'll wrap this presentation with a discussion on implications and solutions. So implicit bias basically refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, our actions, and our decisions in an unconscious manner. And these biases can originate from societal norms, social experiences, and cultural contexts, often shaping perceptions without our awareness. In the realm of academic advising, implicit bias can significantly influence how advisors interact with students, potentially leading to an unequal treatment and expectations. By recognizing and addressing implicit bias in academic advising, institutions can foster a more inclusive and equitable educational environment, ultimately supporting all students in achieving their academic goals. So what impact does implicit bias have on student interactions? There's differential treatment possibly. Advisors may unintentionally favor students who share similar backgrounds, interests, or communication styles. They can manifest in the amount of time spent with certain students, the encouragement offered, or even the types of resources recommended. Expectations and assumptions. Advisors might hold preconceived notions about a student's capabilities based on their race, their gender, their socioeconomic status, or maybe even academic history. For example, an advisor may assume a first-generation college student lacks the skills to pursue advanced courses, thereby discouraging them from exploring rigorous academic paths. And then there's also feedback and evaluation that could be impacted. Um, Implicit bias can affect how advisors provide feedback. For instance, students from marginalized groups may receive more critical evaluation or less constructive advice, impacting their confidence and their academic performance. Then there is engagement levels. Advisors who are biased may engage differently with students based on their backgrounds, and a lack of genuine engagement can make students feel undervalued or less motivated to seek help, creating a cycle of disengagement. So what are the consequences for students? It could impact their academic performance. When students perceive that they're not receiving equitable support, it can lead to decreased motivation and lower academic performance. This is particularly detrimental for underrepresented or marginalized students who may already face systemic barriers. Then there's also the consequence of mental health. The experience of biased treatment can contribute to feelings of isolation or stress, negatively impacting students' mental health. And a lack of support from advisors can exacerbate these feelings, making it harder for students to thrive. Then there's retention rates, and that's, something that we're all here for, right? Students who feel unsupported or misunderstood are more likely to transfer or drop out. This can perpetuate cycles of inequality within educational institutions, as diverse students may seek environments where they feel more welcome. So let me stop here, take a pause. What do you think could be some other consequences that students may face if implicit bias is something that comes into play in your advising student relationships? Let's put that in the chat. Repeating classes. Thank you. Lack of recognition for student achievement, insecurities, unwillingness to seek help or resources, lack of trust and advice provided. Excellent. They could withdraw, stop asking questions, develop lack of trust. Excellent, excellent. Not getting connected to academic support resources. Good, good. Comparison to other students. Lack of engagement. Excellent. These are all great. Thank you. So now the next barrier that I want to discuss is stereotyping, which is kind of similar to implicit bias. They kind of go hand in hand. But stereotyping involves making generalized assumptions about individuals based on their perceived group identity, such as race, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or even academic performance. In academic advising, such stereotypes can severely undermine the effectiveness of support provided to students, leading to miscommunication, missed opportunities, and a lack of respect for individual experiences. So by recognizing and addressing the impact of stereotyping in academic advising, institutions can create a more inclusive and respectful environment, ultimately empowering students to thrive academically and personally. So how does stereotyping impact the advisor-student relationship? Sometimes it can come in the form of oversimplified assessments. And so that's basically when advisors rely on stereotypes, they reduce students to simplistic categories, failing to appreciate their unique backgrounds, aspirations, and challenges. For instance, assuming that all international students struggle with English can lead to an inadequate support, as some may be fluent and need more advanced academic guidance. There may be reduced engagement. Advisors who stereotype students may inadvertently create an environment where students feel misunderstood or marginalized. This can discourage some communication, making students less likely to seek help or engage fully in their academic journeys. There could be a mismatch of expectations, okay? Advisors may form expectations based on stereotypes, leading to a disconnect between advisor advice and students' actual needs. So, for example, assuming a student from a low-income background can't afford certain opportunities might prevent an advisor from suggesting things like maybe study abroad opportunities. Impediments to academic growth. Stereotypes can lead advisors to underestimate a student's potential, resulting in lowered academic expectations. This can have a significant impact on students' self-esteem and motivation, perpetuating a cycle of underachievement. So what are some other things you think that stereotyping, or how else can stereotyping impact a student-advisor relationship? Let's put that in the chat. Assumption that a student does not have academic support needs because they are fill in the blank, okay? Students directed to field or profession that doesn't match their interests and goals, not connecting them to student organizations that they express interest in. Very good. These are excellent. Great. We have some agreement in areas here. Students directed to field. Yes. Okay. Yep. Second that. Ditto. Good. Good. Okay. So what are some of the consequences that students may face if they're being stereotyped? One would be academic performance. When students perceive that they are not receiving equitable support, it can lead to decreased motivation and lowered academic performance. This is particularly detrimental for underrepresented or marginalized students who may already face systemic barriers. Mental health. Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Excuse me. So consequences for students will be academic performance, okay? When students feel pigeonholed by stereotyping, they can diminish their confidence and hinder their academic performance. They may internalize advisors' lowered expectations, leading to self-fulfilling prophecies where they do not strive for higher achievement. There's also the sense of belonging, okay? That's something that we discuss prevalently in our line of work, students feeling a sense of belonging, and that also impacting their retention or having a direct correlation between their sense of belonging and retention. So students who feel that their individuality is overlooked may struggle to develop a sense of belonging within the academic community. This can lead to isolation, decreased participation in campus activities, and ultimately a negative impact on their overall college experience. Then it can also impact their mental health. Constant exposure to stereotyping can lead to feelings of anxiety and depression among students. They may also feel pressure to conform to stereotypes or fear being judged based on their backgrounds, which can take a toll on their mental health. Retention issues, okay? We talked about that again, that here it is again. Stereotyping can contribute to higher dropout rates, particularly among marginalized groups. When students do not feel respected or understood, they are more likely to transfer to institutions where they believe they will receive better support. Okay, so the next barrier would be cultural competence, okay, or the lack of cultural competence. Cultural competence refers to the ability to understand, communicate with, and effectively interact with people across cultures. In the context of academic advising, cultural competence is crucial for recognizing and addressing the unique challenges that diverse student populations face. A lack of cultural competence among academic advisors can lead to misunderstandings, ineffective support, and ultimately a failure to meet students' needs. By prioritizing cultural competence and academic advising, institutions can create an environment that is respectful and supportive to all students, ultimately leading to a greater academic success, retention, and overall well-being. So how does the lack of cultural competence impact academic advising effectiveness? Okay. Basically, there could be a misunderstanding of student needs. Advisors lacking cultural awareness may misinterpret students' behaviors, their communication styles, or their needs. For instance, a student from a collectivist culture might prioritize group success over individual achievement, which could be misunderstood as a lack of ambition if the advisor is not familiar with cultural norms. There could be an inadequate support for diverse challenges. Diverse cultural backgrounds can influence how students experience challenges such as academic pressure, financial stress, or mental health issues. Advisors without cultural competence may overlook these factors, leading to generalized advice that fails to resonate with the student's reality. Communication barriers. Cultural differences can impact communication styles, including verbal and nonverbal cues. Advisors may not recognize these differences and may interpret a student's hesitance to speak up in meetings as disinterested or disengaged, rather than a sign of respect or discomfort. So we got to be careful there. Then there's also the lack of trust. If students perceive that their advisors do not understand or respect their cultural backgrounds, they may be less likely to share important information or seek guidance. This lack of trust can create a barrier to effective advising and hinder the advisor-student relationship. So how else could the lack of cultural awareness or cultural competence impact advising effectiveness? Let's put that in the chat. Yep, you could unintentionally offend. Yeah, that's big, you know. Anybody else? And once that offense happens, you know, that relationship is kind of, there's a breakdown there. And I don't know if you can come back from that. Relying itself on self-advising, misunderstanding or miscommunication can undermine the trust between advisor and student. Yep. Not having open communication, not being able to adequately support their needs, not providing appropriate support. Excellent. These are all things. Excellent. Thank you. So what are some of the consequences for students? So having a lack of cultural competence can affect students by reducing their academic success. There could be a reduced academic success, okay? When students don't account for the cultural context when advisors don't account for the cultural context affecting their students, those students may not receive the tailored support they need to succeed academically. They can lead to lower grades, increased stress, and feelings of inadequacy. There's also feelings of isolation. Students from marginalized backgrounds may feel alienated or misunderstood if their cultural experiences are not acknowledged. This can negatively impact their sense of belonging. There's that word again, that term again, and overall college experience, leading to disengagement from both academic and social activities. Then there's the mental health challenges. That seems to be a theme as well. The pressure of navigating a cultural mismatch between students and advisors can exacerbate mental health issues. Students may experience anxiety, depression, sense of frustration when they feel their unique challenges are not recognized. And then here we go again with retention issues. A lack of cultural competence can lead to higher dropout rates among diverse students. If students do not feel supported or understood, they may seek more inclusive environments elsewhere, resulting in lost opportunities for the institution as well. And then last but not least, our fourth barrier would be the limited awareness of resources, okay? Limited awareness of resources refers to the lack of knowledge that academic advisors may have regarding the full range of support services available to students. And so that's why it's really important as our new advisors come on board that they are aware of all of the resources that this campus has to offer to students. This gap can result in students missing out on critical assistance that could enhance their academic experience overall well-being. Effective advising requires not only an understanding of a student's immediate academic needs, but also a comprehensive knowledge of institutional resources that can provide additional support. By addressing the issues of limited awareness of resources, academic advising can become more effective, ensuring that students receive the comprehensive support they need to succeed academically and personally. This proactive approach fosters a more engaged and empowered student body, ultimately contributing to higher retention and graduation rates. So how can a lack of awareness or limited awareness of resources impact student support? There could be missed opportunities for referrals. Advisors who are unaware of available resources such as tutoring, counseling, financial aid, or career services may fail to refer students to these resources. This can prevent students from accessing essential support that could help them overcome academic or personal challenges. Ineffective guidance. Without knowledge of the full spectrum of resources, advisors may provide generic advice that does not address the specific needs of individual students. For example, a student struggling with mental health issues may benefit from counseling service, but if an advisor does not suggest this option, the student might not seek help. Inconsistent support. When advisors are unaware of available resources, students may receive inconsistent or incomplete support. This inconsistency may lead to frustration and confusion as students may not understand where to go for help or what services are actually available to them. And then there's the underutilization of services. If advisors do not actively promote available resources, students may not be aware of them. For instance, students may not know about workshops, mentorship programs, or extracurricular activities that could enhance their skills and networks. So what are the consequences for students? Academic struggles, mental health challenges, career development gaps, and feelings of isolation. Without access to necessary resources, students may struggle to keep up with their coursework, leading to lower grades and increased stress. This can have a cascading effect, impacting their overall academic performance and retention. Mental health challenges. I'm not going to read that again or go into that again because it's basically the same thing. Career development gaps. If advisors don't inform students about career services, internship opportunities, or networking events, students may miss critical chances to develop professionally. And we are here, the new theme of college to career. So I believe as advisors, that's something that we need to focus on as well. This can hinder their ability to secure jobs or internships after graduation. And then there's feelings of isolation. Students may feel isolated or disconnected from the campus community if they're unaware of social or support groups available to them. This lack of connection can contribute to feelings of loneliness and disengagement. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Margaret.
All right, so Tuonanyene addressed the barriers. Now let's address how we can dismantle some of those barriers and bring it back to the core values of inclusivity and respect. So inclusivity is all about active engagement. It isn't just recognizing diversity, it's about actively creating those spaces where all students feel welcomed, valued, and supported regardless of their background, identity, or experiences. It's about creating equitable environments so students feel safe to disclose their academic or personal barriers to success. And advisors should really strive to reduce those barriers that Tuonanyene mentioned and offer resources tailored to students' unique needs. And inclusivity is about being open to multiple perspectives. Advisors should be encouraged to gather comprehensive information about each student's unique experiences, goals, and challenges, because those personalized and individualized advising approaches and plans that take into account individual circumstances can foster a more supportive environment. And you can adapt your advising practices and approaches to accommodate different cultural, social, and academic needs as well. And it also requires ensuring this through an ongoing commitment to openness, acceptance, and equity in the advising relationship. All right, and what about respect? So respect in advising is recognizing the inherent value of every student and treating them with sensitivity, fairness, and a deep understanding of their unique perspectives. And this means honoring students' lived experiences, listening to their needs, and maintaining a student-centered mindset in all interactions. And respect begins with listening. We kind of already touched on that. And an advisor who truly listens to students conveys respect for their opinions, experiences, and goals. And in practice, showing respect means taking the time to listen deeply to their concerns without judgment and acknowledging their experiences. And respectful listening can be as simple as just validating a student's concern about feeling disconnected. And ways we can help them is by helping them find that sense of belonging, maybe with a student org or another organization within our department. Advisors must practice active listening, ensuring they fully understand a student's perspective before making any recommendations. And developing empathy can help advisors appreciate the complexities of each student's situation. So strong, respectful relationships are built on that mutual trust and understanding. And building rapport and trust is vital for inclusivity and respect. So you can develop that rapport by active listening, by validating those students' concerns, and using a culturally sensitive approach to build a respectful connection. So cultural humility, recognizing and appreciating those cultural backgrounds and individual experiences helps foster that respectful advising relationship and support the importance of cultural humility and openness to learn from students' diverse backgrounds. Understanding a student's cultural background can lead to more respectful and effective advising sessions. And then equity. So treating all students with fairness without bias ensures that respect is at the core of every interaction. And recognizing marginalized student populations' experiences and identities as assets rather than deficits is key. And ways that advisors engage with these identities of the students really shape the nature of the advising experience. However, possessing a similar social identity was not necessary to have to feel an advisor valued or appreciated their student's identity. So it's important to also keep that in mind, that just because you don't share an identity doesn't mean you can't have a great, respectful, inclusive relationship with a student. All right. And now on to some best practices, what we've all been waiting for. So how can we be a more inclusive and respectful advisor? Again, I'm not an expert. We're all still learning. And if you have other tips you've implemented, we welcome you input those in the chat. But first, we're going to start with language. So utilize inclusive language. So this means use asset-based language. Inclusivity is demonstrated through respectful, strength-based communication, focusing on a student's potential. So focus on their strengths rather than deficits. So maybe an example would be, don't just say you struggle with time management. Let's put it in a coaching perspective. Let's build on that ability or to manage those competing priorities you have. So always frame it in that way. Avoid assumptions. Again, avoid assumptions about students' identities, either gender, culture, or ability. And it's also key and respectful to ask how to best refer to people, and then also how they prefer to be engaged with. Using a student's correct pronouns is a small communication practice that promotes inclusivity and respect. And then so you should also avoid making assumptions about a student's choices or circumstances. So use that neutral language to create a safe space for them to be able to share without fear of criticism. Another key component is use those open-ended questions to understand needs better and to encourage a deeper discussion. So this invites students to share more and express their thoughts more freely. And multimodal communication. So communicate in ways that make students feel valued and create strong relationships based on mutual respect. So maybe students need that information provided in a Teams chat along with your virtual interaction, or maybe via email after your in-person interaction, or maybe they just need more time to process any advice and ask to record the meeting. So kind of keep that in consideration. Another really cool resource that Kate shared with me about inclusive language is from Berkeley. So I'll put that in the chat as a reference too, but it kind of is like a do's and don'ts and a playbook for the framework of how to use inclusive language. All right, the next component is affirming communication. So basically affirmations of student belonging. We've heard of various higher education theories that attribute student success and persistence to students who feel attached to their institutions. And advisors who use these micro affirmations in their daily advising practice can create spaces where students can really resist and combat any ongoing marginalized experiences they're experiencing. But micro affirmations are just those small gestures extended on a daily basis that really empower students to thrive. They foster inclusion and include listening, providing comfort and support for people who may feel unwelcome or invisible in an environment such as our institutions of higher education, and even within our department or advising spaces. Another key component of affirming language is that positive reinforcement. So regularly affirm confidence in students' abilities, efforts, and potential of students, no matter how small the interaction may be. So use encouraging phrases like, that's a great idea, or I can tell you took a lot of time to come up with this plan, or that's really thoughtful, but keep this in mind even for providing that difficult feedback, but you missed the prereq here, but you're not able to take those at the same time. Things like that. Recognizing challenges they face while celebrating their resilience, because they're not just the sum of that one experience or their one challenge. Encourage students to set their own goals and reinforce their agency and really their experience, their educational experience, even personal experience. And you can demonstrate understanding by reflecting back what the student has shared. And this shows that you're engaged and interested in their perspective. Empathic statements. So validate students' feelings and use phrases like, I understand how that could be challenging, and just to validate their feelings. You can even share similar experiences if appropriate to really create that connection. This comes up a lot when students are really concerned about the timeline to graduation. They feel they're behind. I say, you're on your own timeline. It took me 6 years to get my bachelor's degree. And they're like, oh, okay. So like you can tell that they breathe a sigh of relief. And then it's also key to follow up to reinforce your support and see how they're processing anything after the meeting, and provide resources or referrals that may help them in their academic journey. And fostering that sense of partnership by thanking students for sharing their thoughts and for their efforts as well. So that's also key too in the follow-up and checking in, because sometimes they put a lot out there for us and we just want to thank them for sharing that with us and trusting us with that information. All right, what's the next one? All right, body language. All right, so this one, body language really influences mood, confidence, performance, and even the ability to build rapport and that trust. So we want to have open body language. We want to practice active listening. We want appropriate eye contact. So we need to recognize that there are differences that may influence comfort levels, whether that be cultural or ability levels. Facial expressions. So this is key for me because I'm always thinking, fix your face. I'm one of those, you can read everything I'm thinking on my face. So it's important to kind of employ that warm, encouraging facial expressions and provide that supportive environment and not just feel like, oh no, what'd you do there? Because really, we want to be really supportive and affirming to the students. And then personal space awareness inside of our office space, because students might not feel comfortable during discussions if they're too close to us. Nonverbal cues again. So pay attention to their nonverbal signals to gauge their comfort and adjust any approaches through that. And then encouragement through your posture. So an inviting posture encourages students to share their concerns and ask questions freely. And then finally, cultural sensitivity. And so just be aware and adapt to diverse cultural norms related to body language to ensure that all students feel respected and included. All right. Let me grab a sip of water. That was a lot. All right, again, feel free to put some of your best practices under these categories in the chat if you want to share. We're not touching on all of them. All right, so next part is environment and policy. So first key is office space. And as some of you may know, like this part's my jam. I've done a couple of presentations on it and I could speak for this entire hour and a half on it. So I'm going to be brief, but essentially it breaks down to our space is not race, gender, class neutral. Systems of oppression have shaped higher education and the policies and practices. And most, if not all, of our higher education systems were designed with a certain population in mind. And this population, or this is just not reflective of the current student population who has access to higher education now. But the system really hasn't changed. But what can we change? We can change our individual practices and hopefully from the ground up change the culture of the institution. But yeah, advisors as individuals can help combat this with our advising space to dismantle some power dynamics of own office space while providing students the tools necessary for their success. So kind of how is your office situated in a way that establishes more of a partnership instead of authority. I like to have students sit kind of next to me, not too close, but sit next to me instead of across from me to show that we're building that partnership and co-creating their plan. So that's some tip that I like to use. And then there's another component about the well building standard. I can go more into this too, but looking at the air quality, the water, access to water, nourishment, light, fitness, comfort, and mind. Those are the components of your office space that really affect not just your productivity, but like your overall mood as well. And then ensure your advising space is inclusive. So I kind of touched on this. I went ahead of myself. You also could consider the seating. Is it accessible and comfortable for all body types and different forms of ability? Are you able to swap out chairs to make sure that it's wheelchair accessible? And then you can consider the waiting area if you have one, like is it child friendly or things like that, that really kind of encompass our student body population and what could potentially happen. Let's see, and consider your decor. So you can demonstrate your personality, but also creating a safe space for students. So we don't want things that are too personalized, that it's clear that it's like your space and you have things about religion or political beliefs that might be too personalized and kind of be a little exclusive to some students. And then another key component is the psychological environment. So consider the vibe of your overall office. If you're not liking it, it's not welcoming, then students are going to pick up on that too. And then consider your vibe. It's a real thing. Your attitude, your mood really affects the psychological space of the office. And if you want to provide a welcoming environment, you better slap on that happy face and really share on, provide that welcoming vibe for your students. And there's little ways you can do that too. Happy to help on that. But yeah, and then policies. This is a little trickier, but advisors can really advocate for policies that are equitable and support all students. So ensure that students from marginalized backgrounds have access to the same resources as their peers. Offer opportunities to all, not just those who really know how to navigate the system with either their social or cultural capital. Creating inclusive policies. So institutions can develop policies that prioritize inclusivity and respect and encourage advisors to recognize and combat stereotyping. And this includes fostering a culture that values diverse experiences and promotes open dialogue. So transparency, that was something you guys put in the chat earlier or in the Mentimeter earlier. That's key. And so try and post any policies to your departmental website or Canvas. And establish accountability and student feedback mechanisms. Institutions can establish metrics to assess advising effectiveness and include student feedback surveys that specifically address experiences related to inclusivity and respect. And that data can really inform professional development and institutional policies. And then processes. So flexible options to access advising services provided. So do you offer virtual, phone, in-person, drop-in advising? Consider all those modes of availability. And do you ever flex your office hours around the traditional workday? Because some students also work 9 to 5. So putting that into consideration, there are some that alter their workdays so they can at least meet with some students that have that traditional time frame. Unveil the hidden curriculum. So just like transparency and posting policies to departmental websites, it's important to unveil that hidden curriculum for our students. Like we could provide advising syllabi that introduce that common language, that define expectations, and ensure that all students are aware of those key milestones within the degree or major. And then variety of tools and strategies used to teach students to monitor and track their progress independently. So yeah, we have degree works, but are we really showing students how to navigate degree works in our appointments, or just assuming that they know all the things about degree works?
Margaret,
What?
so Laura asked about, do you have any ideas or tips on how to tell if your body language is inclusive to all people's culture, all people and their
Any
culture,
tips?
or just
I think it's
that, or
I think by learning about different cultures and their norms could be helpful. Like, you know, that some cultures, between male and female interactions, they can't shake hands, or they can't, like, they touch their hand to the heart as a greeting opposed. So like, it's just kind of being aware of other cultures, how they interact with each other and the norms. Like, how do you say hi or greet people? How do you have a conversation? So it's kind of, I don't have any specifics, but a lot of, or some people take eye contact as aggressive. Yeah. So it's not really anything specific. It really is dependent on the culture. I don't have any specific tools. Maybe looking into more of that Berkeley resource could be helpful. But sometimes it's students' vibes. You can mirror how they're interacting with you, as long as it's appropriate for you, you know, but sometimes it's all about mirroring. But yeah, hopefully that helps. And I'll try and follow up if I can find anything about how to do it. But it's just kind of learned from interacting with a variety of cultures that really helps.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. All right. And then the next part is frame expectations and set boundaries. Like, what's an appropriate time to expect a response from an email? What's appropriate to write an email versus scheduling an appointment for? How many emails are appropriate per day? What are the working hours? Is this all readily accessible, available information that students can look at and have? But sometimes you just can put it in your auto reply. So providing that specifically in there. I know Rebecca has a good one that touches on all of those things, like expected response time, what to email about, what you should have an appointment about, and the mode of appointment availability. So all those boxes are checked. So just spam Rebecca and you'll get that auto reply. No, I'm just kidding. All right, and then utilize accessibility checkers when communicating information. So there's one in Word, there's one in your, what is it, Office, Microsoft Office, there's one in Teams, there's one in PowerPoint. All those things have an accessibility checker, and even in Canvas and stuff too. So utilizing that to make sure we're being inclusive and providing that alt text for pictures, all those things. And then diverse hiring practices. Increasing diversity among academic advisors can lead to a broader range of perspectives and experiences, helping to mitigate bias. And diverse teams may also be attuned to the needs of various student populations. All right, and I have more info on all those things, like I said, so feel free to follow up with me if you're interested. And now I'm handing it over to Tuonanyene.
Hello again, everyone. So I am going to wrap up this best practices section. We're going to talk about behaviors and actions, things that we can do incorporating into our own practices that can help us be more inclusive and respectful. One could be advocating for students. Advisors should take active steps to remove barriers and support students in assessing resources, from financial aid to mental health services. Advisors should proactively promote resources during advising sessions, workshops, and campus events by integrating discussions about available resources into regular conversations. Advisors can ensure students are informed. Also, creating a centralized resource hub where students and advisors can easily access information about all support services that can streamline the process of finding help. This hub should be regularly updated and user-friendly. And so I'm proud to say that I'm part of this new hub over here in UGL. We have created this hub with advisors and learning support services, SDS, coaching. So we're all here in the UGL on the first floor. If you haven't come to visit us, make sure you do, so that you can make sure to tell your students that you advise that we exist over here. Then there's self-reflection. Implement regular self-reflection practices or feedback loops with students to improve inclusivity and respect in advising. To respect students, advisors should continually assess their own biases and strive for growth through ongoing professional development and inclusive practices. Encouraging advisors to reflect on their interactions with students can help uncover any biases. So basically, I know I have a practice of, as I engage with people, or, at the end of my day, I go back and I reflect, how did that interaction land? What could I have done differently? So that may be something that you want to incorporate in your own practice. Establishing anonymous feedback channels can also help students express their experiences with advising. This feedback can inform ongoing training and improvement efforts, also ensuring that advising practices are continuously evolving. Then there's training and development. Encourage a culture of continuous learning and growth by being aware of and participating in training and workshops. So we're here today. That's a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Curriculum development. Including cultural competence as a core competency in advisor training programs can ensure that all staff are equipped to engage effectively with diverse student populations. Institutions should implement comprehensive training programs for advisors focused on recognizing and mitigating barriers that prevent inclusive advising, like implicit bias and stereotypes. This training can emphasize self-awareness, equip them with strategies to engage students on a more personal level, and provide strategies for creating equitable advising practices. Then there's mentorship programs, establishing mentorship programs that pair. We do this. So this is great. Students from similar backgrounds can help foster understanding and create a supportive network for those students. Community engagement. Encouraging students to engage with diverse community organizations and cultural events can broaden their understanding of the students they serve. This engagement can provide invaluable context for the challenges faced by various populations. And so now we wanted to end with some reflections and then an action plan. So first, we're going to reflect on some things that you will stop doing, start doing, and continue to do after learning about NACADA core values and inclusivity and respect. We've made a PDF for you to follow, and Margaret is going to put that up for you guys to view. So we'll take about 5 minutes to do this. And so you're basically going to work on your own.
Yeah.
And this is
Don't want to
basically
put anyone, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say,
Oh,
we don't
no,
want to
go
put
ahead.
anyone, we don't want to put anyone on blast by making you share what you're going to stop doing. So we thought it would be good to have this own personal individual document rather than a Mentimeter style. You don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, but this is definitely for your personal review. And you can download it and should be able within the PDF to just start typing like that. So 5 minutes. Maybe. Trying to see if, oh, there it is. I don't want to listen to an ad. How can I avoid ads? Classroom music for fall. All right.
Margaret, are you keeping time?
Yeah. So we'll come back at 4:06. I want this song to continue, but but we'll get back to the presentation. All right. All right, sometimes OneDrive PowerPoint likes to be very slow. Thanks for reflecting. You're welcome to share some things in the chat too if you want. But the next part is going to be like a small group discussion. So we're going to do, and that you've reflected individually. We want to bring it back to the small groups. And it's key to have those accountability mechanisms. So this kind of is the driver here. And we'd like you to use this Padlet to jot down some things that you and your group are going to commit to, and maybe practices you and your group are going to implement to be a more inclusive and respectful advisor. So you'll have 10 minutes in the breakout rooms. And then if you could choose someone to report out, once we come together, we'll have a comprehensive action plan to hold ourselves accountable to. So give me 1 second while or give Kate 1 second while she works on the breakout rooms. And that's not.
Should all be invited. You can start jumping in.
Yeah. And I'll stay in the main room just for right now.
Okay. Then, so don't join and, let me think here. I might move some people around.
I mean, I can join. Rebecca said that she has to grab her son off the bus, but we'll try and be back. So that's why she hasn't joined, so she can stay in the main room too.
I'll stay in the main room as well, Kate.
I'll join here.
Yeah, there are a couple people that still, we got Dana, Erica, Cynthia, Latonia, and GI 9739. I'm not sure who that is. Oh, Doug. Erica and Doug, if you're here, it's breakout room time. I'm not sure if we have to send the request again. Hi all. I do have the Padlet link if you want to jot some thoughts there. I know it's being closed soon, the breakout rooms. I tried to extend a little bit of time, but it looks like it's not. I don't know how to do that. Anyone know how to do that? But here's the Padlet link again. Sorry all. Major fail, everyone. Sorry. I tried to catch it, but it was so abrupt, everyone was gone. So I tried to sneak into individual breakout rooms to give the Padlet, but we can work on it while reporting out or something. If someone wants to be the writer or secretary of the group, and then someone can be like the reporter, that would be helpful. Does that sound good? Okay, give me 1 second. I'll reshare this screen. All right, can y'all see the Padlet up? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Okay, great. All right, so we don't have to, I think were there 10 or 11 breakout rooms? 11?
Yeah, there were about 10.
All right, so we have a few more minutes. If a group can briefly just say one thing that they'll commit to, practices they'll implement. And another thing is if like you agree with what other people put, you can put little hearts next to it. So yeah, who wants to go first?
I'll go first. This is Cleo with advisors over there.
Okay, right here.
Yeah, that's us.
Okay, great.
One thing that everybody pretty much consistently said is that, how we greet students is really important. And so smiling and, how smiling is contagious and just trying to be positive, whether it's for a virtual meeting or face to face.
Yeah, awesome. It's definitely key. And we'll go to another group. Who else wants to share one thing? And then we can kind of go back if we're all finished after the 10 groups go.
I would like to share something we'll implement. This was from Solaf. I love this. She suggests using we language when constructing solutions, so the student doesn't feel that they're alone. So we'll work on a solution. We'll let's put together something together. And then switching to you language when celebrating their successes. So it's all feeling like it's like you did this, you mastered this, you conquered this. So I like that kind of attention to those pronouns.
That's beautiful.
Great, yeah. Helen, you had your hand raised. Oh, muted.
I was just going to say the pronouns are very important. If they're, he, she, they, just to make sure, and you say student's name correctly, that's very important. We were talking about that.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. Anyone else?
I'll go.
Elizabeth. Okay, go ahead, Jeffrey. I was going to say Elizabeth. Go ahead.
So we talked about being more connected in the community. Once upon a time, we were doing more activities within the community and connecting more. But with so many different things that we have going on currently with special projects and other things, programming, registration, et cetera, students, it's been a little harder to make those connections and attend those events. So we talked about trying to get back to more community engagement. Also doing a deeper dive into more cultural awareness. You know how we oftentimes know the basics about what to do, what to say, how not to look, how to sit, how to present yourself. But there are some other specific things, culture to culture, ethnicity to ethnicity, that we might not be aware of that we should be just on the surface line. And then just to add a little more, our conversation shift a little bit with the question of if we are targeting specific audiences, are we being exclusive? And my comment to that was, in essence, no, we're not, because for this particular situation, there's a target group. We're being intentional about matriculation with a specific group. And then in social work, we do this meeting students where they are, which would again address not being exclusive, but intentional about said target, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's like each student has unique needs. Some might require a little bit more guidance on degree requirements in general or navigating degree works, while others are thrown in their plan by themselves or doing the plan ahead in the registration portal. So it's definitely different levels of support. So it just is appropriate to kind of focus on particular groups that we've seen data that don't have that additional support or need the additional support. Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks, Jeffrey and group. Who else? Melissa or Kaylee.
Yeah, I can go next. Our group was talking about that a lot of times when we're interacting with students, we start to learn like if they have cultural preferences that differ from things that we normally do. For example, people like me who are huggers interacting with people who prefer no contact. You know, when we have those meetings with students, we take note of them that we might take note of that issue in the moment, but sometimes, you know, when that student returns to your office, them having to re-express their previous concerns or previous issues or previous cultural preferences, it doesn't make that a warm and friendly space. And so like making efforts to find a way to record those preferences and refraining from, you know, really respecting their wishes and, you know, finding ways to make sure that you're remembering those things before you meet with people. So we were talking about that quite a bit.
Thank you. Let's see. Some other groups we haven't heard from. I know you all aren't shy.
I can go next.
Okay, great.
So my group, we kind of talked about things we're already doing well, which one of them was offering different types of advising. Like you guys had mentioned, we have evening appointments. So myself and the other advisor in my department flex our schedules each 1 day a week. So that's really key. And then we also do on-site advising at local community colleges. The things that we had talked about that, you know, we would commit to is having a deeper understanding of different cultures and how that can impact a student's educational journey and sometimes the power dynamic between advisors and even sometimes family members that might play a role in the student's education. And then also facial expressions and body language. Similarly, I kind of give off the exact feeling or what I'm thinking in terms of my facial expressions. So working on that and body language as well.
Thank you. It's great that, especially for transfer students and that population, to have like that flex time in the evening and things like that. So that's great. And going to their campus, that's awesome. All right. If you all want to continue to put notes in there, if your group didn't get a chance to utilize the Padlet, the link is in the chat. And then we're going to use this for spoiler alert. There will be a part 2, kind of as a follow-up, but also kind of dive deeper into applying best practices to case studies, like utilizing case studies to look at the best practices and really, you know, get after it that way, and kind of like an encore session where we're going to recap what we learned and then go back to what we committed to and practices we're going to implement in the first session. So did we hold to it? Did we make some changes? And then again, deeper dive on the barriers and applying some best practices. So hopefully you'll join us at part 2 sometime in February or March. I haven't decided a date yet, but hopefully you'll join us again and stay tuned more details. But yeah, we'll open it up to questions now too. So if you'd like, or any more comments. Thank you for joining us this time. Hope to see you next time. Oh, go ahead, Susie.
So something I sometimes struggle with is your body language over Zoom and Teams. How do you suggest showing interest in the the correct body language when we're over those types of
Yeah,
modes.
it's definitely tough because sometimes they don't even turn their camera on. So we're kind of just, I think, still smiling while you're talking or talking about concerns and like making sure you're engaging with the camera. So even though they don't have theirs on, yours is on. So they can probably see you looking at them, or looking through the camera. So it's still good to look into the camera and have that affirming, like nodding your head or something like that when they are talking or explaining an issue. So there's still like the ways that you can still have that body language because you're not being recorded, but kind of you're having the camera on and everything like that.
Voice and
Or
tone too. Voice and tone, ensuring
yeah.
that you have a nice tone, soft tone, whatever. And then also in regards to, how you're looking in the camera. I know I have like several screens in my office, so just make sure that, the camera that you're actually looking at the camera screen and not like up, because sometimes I tend to look up. So just make sure that you're focusing in on the one that has the camera.
Absolutely. Thank you both. And
Yeah.
I do
Yeah, of
make
course.
sure to, if I have like information on the other screen I'm trying to look at, I'm always like, I'm looking at your information in stars right now, and I see
Right.
that type of thing to let them know why.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So it's 4:30. So if you all have to leave, we'll respect that time, but there are a few other questions that we'll address. Go ahead, Helen. Or I can't tell
Wait,
who's
one
first.
second,
Sorry.
Margaret. One
Oh,
second, Margaret. Why don't you put the screen with our resources on there in case people want to take a
oh yeah.
screenshot
Oh, yeah.
or
Mhm.
picture of that?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask a quick question about body language. I had a mother of a student from Vietnam one time was all upset because I was doing like, I guess I speak with my hands, or maybe I did more back then. And she reported me to my supervisor at the time that I was threatening her.
Mm,
And it was like I had to apologize, and this whole
mhm.
everything else was fine, but something with the body language, the hands were bothering her. So is that like something you found in any of your reading? Like, should we keep our hands down? Is that a cultural thing that hands are threatening? Or I don't know. I never had that happen since, but it was rather upsetting at the time.
I mean, it could be, and I'm guessing that it varies by culture. So, my suggestion, just off the top of my head, would be, if you have a student that's coming in with a different cultural background from yourself, it may be wise to do a little research. Just kind of
Okay.
see what nonverbals, things that may be offensive. You may want to do a little research before you meet with them so that at least you're somewhat aware of
Yeah.
things that
Okay.
you want to avoid.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Like a thumbs up for us is great, but maybe a thumbs up in
It could
another
be
culture is
something else,
offensive.
like the middle
Yeah.
finger. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
Yeah,
exactly.
it was like too many hand gestures,
Yeah.
something
So
was
a lot of
off.
time, like, yeah. So I think it's safe to keep our hands to ourselves, though, because
Yes.
like,
Keep my
but
hands
still be
down. Yeah.
welcoming.
Okay,
Go ahead.
all right.
Go ahead,
Thank
Laura.
you. Thank you.
Well, there were two things. One, we were talking about in our group about the nodding. Does nodding just mean culturally that in some communication styles, that means I understand you, and other communication styles, that means I agree with you? And
Gotcha.
just that being a thing. But I have a kind of a follow-up question based on what Helen shared, something that I kind of comes up a little bit when we think about this idea of doing research, right? But I think one of the things that I find challenging is this idea of in order for me to prep for a student appointment with somebody who I haven't met before, and they're from, their address is somewhere in Southeast Michigan, I might be then forced to make an assumption, right? Like that is I think that's a fine tipping point in some of this, right? That
Yeah.
so I'm always I guess what I'm saying is any guidance on more general ways or more broad ways or more resources that has best practices that are safer is always welcome because of that, because I'm afraid to judge Because I recognize now after having done this for 18 years, how much I did it in the first 5. Right? So
Yeah.
having worked out of some of that, we're really wanting to make sure that my next points don't go back to that.
I don't want to jump in and you guys, but I
Go
think
ahead.
that's where that whole notion of cultural humility is, where you like truly are humbling yourself to the fact that there's more to know. There's always more to know. You don't know. And so maybe admitting that up front and saying, I might have more to learn here. I'm going to give myself the homework of doing that before we meet again, you know, or so I don't make assumptions. I don't know. I'm just thinking like, it's that being generous with the fact that sometimes you have to come with that questioning mindset. Like, what do I need to know? What do I not want to make assumptions about? Help me. I need your help in figuring that out. That's where I think like we have to be generous with each other and charitable with each other. And sometimes with that stuff.
For sure. And it's okay to ask them too. Like you're getting to know them and saying like, is there something I should be aware of? And I want to be respectful of you and all that stuff. So is there certain things you've noticed in the US or something that is different and I could adjust? I don't know. It's really about just getting to know your students, and sometimes you can pick up whether they're uncomfortable or not. And just if you're picking it up, then say, oh, did I do something? How can I alter that? Or I'm sorry, you know, and that's what Kate was saying, like that cultural humility. But yeah,
Elizabeth?
everyone's learning and we're not like experts either. So happy to share what we know, but we're not the experts. Or I'm not. Don't want to speak for Tuonanyene.
I'm not
Go
an
ahead,
expert
Elizabeth.
either. So yeah, you can speak for me. In
Okay.
that regard. I'm not an
Yeah,
expert.
that's just my philosophy in general. I don't say I'm an expert in anything. We can have
Right.
some knowledge to share. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking like based on your comment and Laura's question, like, does anyone, because this is something I'm thinking about I could do, send out like a survey like at the beginning of the semester? Or, like I used to do that in my class all the time. Like, what do you want me to know about you? Like maybe that's something we do is like send out a survey at the beginning of each semester to all of our students. And like, you know, I was thinking, could we do it before every appointment? And I think that might be a little burdensome, but I'm wondering if like at the beginning of the semester.
Yeah.
That's
Lauren and I
excellent.
started doing, like, we created a survey, but like we do it during orientation. So like not semesterly or anything, but before orientation, I can share. So like, it's also in our signatures, but yeah, we did that before. It's like, we'd love to get to know you. That's why we do what we do. Please complete this web form as a way of sharing more about yourself and your goals. So it's like, why public health? But then it's also like, what are some barriers that you'd want to disclose, or what else do you want us to know about you, type of thing. So yeah, it's definitely, that's like how you said that you did it for a class. That's how I learned about it, was during like one of the Gardner things, like a first year seminar type presentation, being inclusive and all that stuff. They suggested this type of thing.
Sorry, I actually have it in my stars when they make an appointment.
Nice.
They fill out a survey, like what, you know, tell me about, you know, why you'd like to meet today, or, you know, whatnot. And Dennis helped me with all that, but like to get everything set. But and students do fill it out, so you could tailor it. You know,
How do you
that's
organize that into your workflow, if you don't mind me asking? Like, do you check it? Like, does it go to a form where you like check as you're prepping for the day, or like, what's the best way you found to make that happen?
Actually, it's in
Your special instructions.
Yes, it's in my instructions. And I mean, I'm a student success coach. So it's, you know, it's not like I see like 10 students a day. Usually they're coming in because there's something going on, or they've been referred to me. And just so I have just say, you know, just a couple questions, just a little heads up. You know, maybe they're coming for study strategies, or they're coming, you know, they'll put financial aid, and then I'll connect them with financial aid, or, you know, something like that. So
do you go in the form at the end of the day for the next day's students just to see if
there's I have it in the forms.wayne.edu.
Oh yeah.
And it's a student success coach appointment survey. So I can download it in Excel and view everything.
Got it.
Okay.
But that keeps it easy to track.
Yeah. Then what, as far as like the form that Lauren and I have, it's, when we get a response, we get notified, obviously, and then, depending on what they say, I always try and respond. So I was like, oh, it's great getting to know you. Oh, that's cool that you have cats or something like, or that's cool. You like K-dramas. My favorite is this. And then thanks for filling that out. Hopefully we can meet soon. Something else, so like so they're not just filling it out and like saying, oh, I put myself out there and I don't even get a response. So like I thought like having a response is important too, and acknowledging anything. And some students mentioned, oh, I'm pre-med. So there I respond and put all my spiel about pre-med. Here, go to essentials meeting. Here's academic information. Meet with the advisor. Like I have a whole bulleted point. So like so it's really beneficial. I just hope I got more responses during like orientation and stuff, because it's like the first line. Here, fill this out. And then sometimes sporadically, if we make an announcement about it, we get some more, but hasn't been too many people pulling it out. But maybe if I put it in the appointment stuff,
Yeah.
they'll fill it out before the appointment. It's hard to obligate students to do that.
Conditioning yourself to check it every day so that
Yeah.
that you're actually looking and
Mhm.
applying what you've learned.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
I'm gonna stop the recording right now.
Okay.